Hey, my friend, it's good to be back wearing the familiar hat. It is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. This is Designer Market Update, and we're going to get right into it. So Bitcoin price action has actually been, from my perspective, a bit disappointing. I mean, we saw the price of Bitcoin going higher, like $107,000 a coin. Why in the world are we falling backwards? And yeah, there could be a number of different reasons why, but it's frustrating to no end that we can't seem to sustain a rally in the price of Bitcoin that, really pushes us up, let's say above 110,000, and we stay above 110,000. And then we can kind of build a base, consolidate a bit and then go from there. It frustrates me because I start to wonder whether or not it's possible, right, that we may have topped out. Now, I know that sounds sacrilegious, right? Like, what are you talking about? If you were to study past cycles, right, hey, it would be more like maybe by the end of this year where we would presumably, if the past is any indicator of the future, where we might see the price of Bitcoin really start to kind of like reach its peak for this particular cycle, to be followed by what presumably would be a crypto winter, right? Which would mean the price of Bitcoin, falling. And, from the perspective of being an investor in a publicly traded Bitcoin mining company, I think what many of us have learned, right, through trial and error is that you probably don't want to be invested necessarily, right, through the downturn. That could be a very painful process. It is, by contrast, more interesting to maybe try to sell out at the top and, be patient, perhaps rebuy certain names when the bottom hits, right? It's always hard to gauge these things or to predict them with any, degree of accuracy, but I'm just concerned, a little bit concerned, keeping it real. Because, Bitfarms, right? Like, we'll take a look right now at our at our stocks here. By the way, I need your input on this, seriously. Saluna Holdings, SLNH. Somebody asked me in the comments, hey, to one of the broadcasts, hey, would you consider adding this ticker symbol to the dashboard, right, to the list here? And I'm happy to entertain those requests, right? After all, I actually added it to the dashboard. That being said, I'm looking more closely at this company, and at first glance, I thought it actually had a market cap that was like upwards of like maybe $700-800 million, right? But now it seems to appear as if though the market cap is maybe closer to 25 million. If you wouldn't mind letting me know in the comment section, and this is something I really want to review very carefully. Should we keep SLNH on this dashboard or not? The reason I say that, listen, I know from firsthand experience, Stronghold Digital Mining had a bunch of different market caps, right? Depending on what source you looked at, you'd see all kinds of wackadoodle information out there. And there's a variety of reasons for why that happened to be the case. But I don't really follow Saluna with any degree of, intensity, right? So I'm just wondering from your perspective, have you heard good things about this company? Is this a company that we should have on the dashboard? Is it a company that perhaps distracts us from some of the major players that we do want to be focusing on? Let me know in the comments. And again, if you have any suggestions as to other potential companies to add, I'm open-minded to that. I do want to try to keep our dashboard somewhat focused on what I would describe as the more significant major players in the space. So today, Saluna is topping the list up over 14%, followed by Iris Energy up over 5%, and CleanSpark is finally seemingly coming back to life a little bit. I nibbled on some shares of CleanSpark back at $11 a share in the autumn. Remember, they kind of jumped up from about 7 or 8, then they kind of got up to about 11. And then they just really took off, right? After the election. Well, I paper-handed that trade pretty spectacularly and missed out on a significant portion of that upside. But I ultimately didn't miss out on much because the stock kind of came all the way back down to 10, $11 a share. In fact, I think at one point it was even in the high 9s. So good to see CleanSpark at 1141. Again, where's this bull run? If to the extent there is going to be a bull run, where is it reflected in these stock prices? And I'm asking that very sincerely. It's frustrating to no end to see that these companies continue to, from my perspective, just kind of tread water. I mean, Bitfarms, what are we talking about here? A stock that's trading down 5 cents today to $1.61, at least as of right now, when I'm doing this broadcast. Like, I'm slightly, I'm just slightly frustrated with what we're seeing. And so, as I've said before, I do think we need the price of Bitcoin to be cooperative. We need hash prices, which are at around 61 or so, which isn't so bad, right? To be cooperative. But I don't know, there's something with the price action that just seems a little bit off, right? Now, I understand some would say, hey man, it's like a lot of short seller manipulation. Okay, I hear you. But this is like the entire sector. I mean, in rock bottom position today, Argo Blockchain, they're down to 50 cents a share. I mean, that company is really, really struggling. I haven't looked in detail as to what's going on with them, but somebody mentioned that they have like an upside down balance sheet, all kinds of issues. Anyway, let me know about Saluna though, SLNH. Do we keep that or not? And is there any other that you'd like to see on this list? Listen, I'm still working on these graphics. It's a bit of a process. I'm not a graphic designer, and I want to keep a somewhat, handmade feel to these broadcasts. As I've said many times before, right? The goal here is to keep it somewhat human, right? I don't want to have some algorithmically created version of myself doing this. Otherwise, like, what's the point, right? Okay, my friends. So let's end today with a quote. Challenges are what make life interesting, and overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. Challenges are what make life interesting, and overcoming them is what makes life meaningful. And that's a quote from Joshua Marine, if I'm getting that name correctly. So, I don't know. I do agree that challenges can make life interesting. Overcoming them, yeah, it can make life meaningful. But wouldn't you agree with me, especially if you've been around the block a couple of times with some of these publicly traded Bitcoin mining stocks, right? I think we don't want any more challenges, right? We want these stocks to work, right? We want Bitcoin to work. And I mean, this administration, at least here in the United States, under the leadership of President Donald J. Trump, I do genuinely believe, as it relates to Bitcoin, okay, I think this administration has the potential to really clear the way for some phenomenal regulatory environment. Not to mention, I mean, look at President Trump evidently launched his own meme coin. I mean, that to me, there's been some criticism on the periphery about that. From my perspective, hey, look, this is the free market enterprise system at work, so to speak, right? And if you have a president who's actively launching a meme coin, I would like to believe that that president's Securities and Exchange Commission or whatever other regulatory body, right, wants to come after people who want to innovate and try new things and experiment. I would hope that the regulatory environment is such that meme coins can flourish. Buyer beware, of course, right? But let's not have an environment where, you got to be sweating bullets thinking, man, am I going to end up in jail or something because of a meme coin, right? I mean, you can't have fraud. You can't have overt, stuff like that, right? That's not good. But it would be great if there's an environment where we could just kind of allow people to experiment and flourish with new ideas and new things. So I'm optimistic that Bitcoin can flourish under this administration, but we do need to see the price of Bitcoin start to move higher. I do see MicroStrategy's buying Bitcoin left and right. Are they the only buyer? I mean, who's selling, right? So hopefully we could get a more broad-based bull run where we see the price really start to move up on broad-based buying, right? So, okay, let's stay positive. Let's be great. And we're going to see each other again tomorrow.